Let's call the meeting open. Open the meeting here. At we'll call it 7:30. It's a little bit early. Bill would like to do this in place.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Dallas?
Present.
Secretary Sauce?
Present.
Treasurer Hammond?
I'm here.
Trustee Salem?
Here.
Trustee Simpson?
Here.
Officer President, Chief Evans, Deputy Chief Burnham, and Attorney West.
Before we do anything, do you need a copy of our agenda? All right, okay, just making sure. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Are we doing all three sets of minutes?
I would like to.
Okay.
I was fine with all three.
All right.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. Okay.
Any opposed? Yes.
All those in favor, yeah.
All in favor, say. You know, I get the language down probably by the end of my second year.
Oh,
At least I'm writing notes, so I know what it is to put March on the floor. Yes, sir.
Matt Rich, Superintendent Winfield 34. I want to thank Chief Evans for participating in our ROE walkthrough on November 3rd or November 8th, got changed. Chief always walks with us when we have the ROE walkthrough and try to make sure that we're not only meeting the ROE standards, but fire code standards, and gives us the best consultant advice he can. I don't think he realized that in this particular visit, it was really going to be the ROE guy asking him for and picking his brain for an hour and a half. But Chief was wonderful and very patient with our ROE inspector and helped clarify any questions he may have about the process. So big thanks to Winfield Fire Protection District and Chief Evans for that.
Thanks,
part of an awesome partnership that we have.
Randy Howard.
Hi, Randy Boss, resident, just sitting in to watch our fire board in action, and I hope that the village, the residents of the fire district start paying more attention and start to take appreciation of the fire department a little bit more, and you all do a great job and really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Anyone that has their hand up out there?
Let them know they need to use the raise your hand feature, or just open your mic and unmute yourself if you have something to contribute right now. I turned the mic sensitivity up just a little bit, so people should hopefully be able to hear us a little better.
Just FYI for the folks out there, after we do a payment of the bills, I'm gonna open the floor open for remarks also. So if you're uncertain or just got started, you'll have a second chance, okay? Not you people here. Okay. There's nothing right now, so we'll move on. Reports. We have a treasurer's report.
It's in your packet. Nothing major of note this month to add to it.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this month, the special operations training was once again technical rescue training and skill stations for those members that are certified to the technician level in those disciplines. They are confined space, rope and high angle, trench, and structural collapse. So 4 unique disciplines, also actually stemming from rope operations, which was last month's drill. So that in an effort amongst the Alliance, when we have a call for one of these types of events, along with hazardous materials, response, and our specialty, water rescue operations, the specialty teams are dialing up their proficiencies so that we can handle things more locally, which will lead to more people showing up faster to a scene we believe will lead to better outcomes. As part of that, we're all making sure that all of our people are trained up to beyond the standard currently, so that we can start changing our operations a little bit to deploy our internal alliance people faster to those scenes for better outcomes. So that's what the special operations training was for this month. The multi-company is in progress today. Deputy Chief Ermer spent his entire day there along with our crew for the second session as usual. As always, I would encourage anyone that's interested, I'll be happy to take you over and you can observe the training in progress. It's being held this month at Station 28, and it is a live fire evolution, single family house fire with a RIT rescue. So firefighter down rescue operation, because in these events, which unfortunately happen all too frequently, a lost, trapped, injured firefighter inside the building while you're actively fighting a fire, it suddenly transforms instantly into two separate operations. Because we got called there to fight a fire and rescue people and all of that stuff, that operation has to continue because that's why we're there. And then similarly, we have to also have split off a group to work on the firefighter rescue, which is very intensive training. This is essentially the November drill typically every year for the Alliance, because this takes all of the live fire trainings, all of the practical evolutions that we've been doing throughout the year. And this is really that final exam for the season going into the winter months, that all of the stuff that we've trained on, drilled on, practiced on, all come into play, because all of those things in terms of fire attack, ventilation, search and rescue, all of the specialty areas of rescuing a down firefighter, which I'm actually going to get into momentarily when I talk about the SCBAs, all of that stuff comes into play. So it is an enormous thing. The command structure doubles, the amount of crews you need double, everything gets instantaneously bigger. And insofar as that goes, you have to make sure that you don't lose track of companies, people, all of the other stuff. So it's, in terms of the command element and the command structure of those types of operations, it's incredibly intense, even in training. So that's what this month's drill is. And I don't know if you wish to comment on anything more about.
It all went well. Our crews did really well. Lieutenant Roman's crew came in on one of the first evolutions of the day, and they performed extremely well. Matt Smith set up the EMS portion, which is the newer portion of it, where beyond just pulling a dummy out, they actually had a victim off the first floor, and then they go straight into the firefighter down CPR, and then the EMS crew has to take that all the way through. So Matt's been kind of leading that throughout the entire alliance. Again, well received and well done. For this. It's a good day, very good day of training, and then we caught a fire in the woods.
Recent incidents of note, we had an appliance fire on Creekside Drive, and we had a series of SWAT call outs. So actually Seth Lamb, who actually happened to walk in the room. So several fire agencies, including this one, have worked with, and actually Deputy Chief Ermer, going back to when he was Captain Ermer in Warrenville, led this whole deal of having SWAT medics available for the SWAT teams when they do SWAT work. Unfortunately, it was a very, very busy month for the SWAT teams, and Seth, in fact, which Deputy Chief Ermer can talk to more momentarily. That was essentially the incidents of note. Again, if you look at the call, numbers are up, we're running a lot of calls, and I typically will only speak of calls of note, those being them. Unfortunately, today happened, which 18 calls later, a fire, rollover accident. It was a very, very, very busy day so far. Did you want to speak any more about the SWAT?
The SWAT, it's becoming busier and busier. We will be doing some recruiting through the rest of the county for the SWAT team. In fact, our SWAT team is out on another barricaded subject right as we speak. They just rolled about 30 minutes ago with another one. Anyway, our next big project is to continue recruiting and get that team up to about 9 medics for the county, 9 to 12 medics. So we're rolling them. Seth's doing a good job. He's stepping up. He had one of those calls the other night, and by the time I was able to get there, after everything else, he had already coordinated with the in-town fire department. The EMS set it all up and had the temps and the medical aspects all kind of coordinated with command at that time, so we're doing a good job. We all in the county really appreciate it.
Thanks. Service anniversaries, Dave Fermento celebrated 26 years total time. He started as a part-time member and was hired full-time after a few years. He's got 26 years total time with the district as of November 1st. Matt Smith, on duty today, which we've been talking about. He celebrated his 12th anniversary with the district on November 9th. Other information, tender 31 is still out for repairs. They were, one of the things we had tasked the repair shop with was trying to find an alternative means for the dumps to work. Being a tender, that's the most, the fact that it carries 2,500 gallons of water. And then the second, or 1A or 1B, is the fact that it can dump that water out of the water chutes. And we've had issues with the water chutes on that vehicle for some period of time. So they tried tried to retrofit it with some sort of mechanical that was more fail safe than the chutes that exist. And that is still underway, along with other miscellaneous repairs that are being done as a result of its heavy use for the last several months while engine 31 was out. In terms of engine 31, it is back. It has been running front line. And for those that didn't hear, it did have a mechanical failure earlier today when going to respond on a call. It was one of those things. The repair shop came out, fixed it in the bay, and they've responded. Subsequent to the repair, it's been responding the rest of the day without issue. So hopefully that will continue to be the case. That's why the West Chicago engine is parked here, is in case that the repair was going to be more extended in the time frame they could switch over. The SCBA's. So as the board is aware, we got a grant for self-contained breathing apparatus, FEMA grant. In 2019, was awarded in 2020. With COVID, everybody that was awarded a FEMA grant was given an extension because it was difficult to get things done under all the COVID restrictions and whatnot. So we've been working away at it. Got the air packs. We actually received $147,936 from FEMA for their part of the grant. It has not made it to bank account yet, but just so the community knows, we've been working hard and almost $150,000 in grant funds, which supplied us with these air packs. So we have 24 air packs, 2 bottles each, 24 masks plus 8 masks. So the benefits of these are, first of all, the air packs we had were no longer under warranty. So every time they were breaking, they were in excess of 15 years old. Every time they were breaking, nothing was covered. So it was the repair costs were completely on us, and we had a tendency to lose about 1 air pack per training evolution, just because of the age and use of them. Some of the benefits that come with this are the bottles we were using were 4,500 pounds per square inch of air in here for a 30-minute bottle. These bottles are 5,500 pounds per square inch of air pressure, and they're 45-minute bottles. That's good. The other side of this is with changes in NFPA standards, we have alarms that go off inside the SCBA. When we're in a house you can't see, smoky conditions, all that other stuff. So we have alarms all over the packs and in our masks that tell us when you get down to a quarter bottle, so that you need to get out. Well, the NFPA standards changed, and now it's 1/3 service. So actually those old bottles, under the new standard, you get less time in the building. So that's why, as SCBA's new ones are coming online, more pressure, longer duration times, because you actually winds up being about the same amount of time on an interior firefight before you go on bells, it's called. So that's one of the things. Other things are, it comes with a connection, so that if you are in fact a downed or trapped firefighter and a RIT team comes in, a rescue team comes in to help you, it's now got integrated hoses where they can make quick connections and are universal, so they can hook up to you, so you can stay on supplied air while they're effectuating the rescue and then getting you out of the building. And one of the big things with this particular manufacturer that ultimately was awarded the grant is the packs themselves, not the bottles, but the packs themselves have a lifetime warranty. So that was a big deal for us. And given our finances, this was a really big deal for us because as long as we do the annual maintenance, maintain them and that kind of thing, that we won't run into the problems we ran in with our previous packs. Bottles themselves, these types of bottles, which are wrap bottles, they're composite bottles. Ultimately, they all have a lifetime on it, 15 years. So I
Ours
think
were expiring, and so this.
yeah, and this is what, 5,000 a piece, a little over. So all of our bottles that we had were expiring anyway. So the money for our contribution or our percentage of the grant would have gone towards new bottles for those old packs anyway. So this was a win on every conceivable front for us.
And I will say, I think the old bottles were from a grant.
They were
A
FEMA grant
FEMA grant also.
almost 20 years ago. And again, the federal award was just under $148,000. Our contribution was just over $36,000, which was a little higher because the federal grant was awarded for $7,000 for an air pack, 2 bottles and a face mask. And pricing came in from the vendors that submitted bids over that, so that was on the district, but still it was a win for the fire district all day. We would have spent well more than that on the bottles in the packs we had.
And again, great job to the team that wrote for the grant and, got all the applications done and just processed the whole thing. Because that's
Curiosity,
huge.
what was the cost of a month of work, but not the maintenance of the bottles? Since we're out of money?
That would have been an MES issue, and it depended upon the month. Again, not every month we do live fire trainings, and we were typically losing about 1 pack, but it was minor repairs, hundreds of dollars as opposed. Okay. But
Yeah.
let's see what else is in the report. TIF 2 was not on the agenda. We have not seen a finalized draft that would have gone before the board at any rate, so therefore it didn't make the agenda. ETSP I wanted to talk about for a moment. So the radios we have refer to as Starcom radios, or a proprietary radio system, but it involves interoperability between everyone. We can talk to anyone in the country on these things. They're great radios, and it was a major win when we got them for interoperability with police, federal, state, local agencies, all that kind of thing, communication range. So the radios we had, which were purchased by the ETSP on a grant, so we don't own the radios and we don't pay for, they're proprietary, so you pay for airtime. Those costs weren't borne by us or any of the other agencies. And those radios were reaching their end of life, so they had to be replaced. So ETSB compliments ETSB for their hard work and effort, and that is going to be coming up. We're going to be getting replacement radios, and as well, they're going to be getting mobile radios in all of our fleet. So that's going to be coming, and that, a lot of money, and thankfully the vast bulk of that cost is not going to be absorbed by the fire district outside of radio installations and that kind of thing in the vehicles. But big win, they're better enhanced. Obviously they're warranted and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be a good thing for us, just so you know that it's going on. ESO Solutions, as the board is probably aware, I've been talking for some period of time that Firehouse. So when we put in a report for an EMS or fire call that goes to the state, also commonly called a NIFRS or non-FIRS call report, we have to, every time we run a call, we have to report it to the state and for our own records, obviously. And the reporting software that we used has been around for almost 30 years. And the writer of that software, which was a very common one, Firehouse software, announced that they were no longer going to be supporting it, and they provided an end of life for Firehouse, which we knew was coming. So staff did a tremendous job of vetting the different alternatives, and we've gone with ESL Solutions because on top of it being better in terms of autofilling a lot of the data and information from the dispatch center, being able to jump into our reports for more accuracy when we're doing things like querying calls and call statistics. And it also comes with some other options in terms of staffing models, calendaring, what are the
Scheduling, there is a maintenance, I'm not sure we can go that direction with maintenance.
tracking,
There'll be inventory tracking for other stations and inspections.
So it'll have a lot of nice features and really be able to allow us to be a lot more streamlined in our operation. So it's a big win, but that's going to be coming along as well. Deputy Chief Ermer submitted a grant recently.
Grant for the air compressor. So with the new air packs, we'll have to upgrade our air compressor. It'll obviously get to 45. The compressor that we have will get to 55 PSI, 5,500. What won't is the pipe in the actual fill station. So that's what needs to be upgraded to the next level with the regulator and all that stuff. So we put in a grant for everything. We'll see, we should hear that here pretty soon because the second round of that same grant starts at the end of December. So I looked online yesterday to see if there's any movement on. There has not been any announcements on that, but I'll keep you posted.
So one of the things actually to mention about 5,500 packs is that they are compatible with our neighboring agencies. So when we're hooking up to each other, 5,500 packs work. So that was one of the reasons to make that move, because this is kind of the future. So and their future, given the warranty issue, they're future proofed, and that was why we elected to go that route, even though there's going to be some outlay of costs for like pressure and stuff like that. It ultimately would be a better move for us because of our ability to work.
It makes it safer for the guys.
Yeah.
Makes it safer for everyone.
Lexipol, I've drafted the deputy chief into helping me, so that project continues to move along. He's actually got some policies that he just dialed up in the last couple of weeks, so that's moving along. Again, they anticipate an 18 to 24 month implementation schedule, and we seem at this point to be ahead of schedule, so all things are going well with that. RFPs for roof repairs, is that something we want to discuss?
What's that?
The RFPs for roof repairs.
The RFPs will be on, for roof repair will be on next month's agenda. I've got it pretty much all dialed in. I'll have that in your packet for next month. And then I've also signed up for the Demand Star for a bidding process, tracking process. It just makes everything very transparent. We'll be using that, going out to bid there. And if anybody else in town knows of them that's does roofing, by all means, we can send those directly to that. But that'll be coming about, and we will be working on that roof. Hopefully get it going in the spring as soon as we're ready, as soon as they're ready to go working on it. That'll be the next thing to come up for the next month.
And then the last item is GEMT. As you know, I've reported about that, and we entered into the GEMT, Ground Emergency Medical Transport program. And we just got an update. Remember, that's through state mechanisms, those ambulance transports that are capped either through Medicare, Medicaid, or Medicare. There's supplemental funding that comes from the state. The other side of that, as the board might recall, is the fact that at the end of that, you'll get billed for half of what they collect on your behalf. So, and we just got an update a couple of days ago from the ambulance billing service that through GEMT thus far, we have gotten an additional roughly $135,000. So that's the good news. The bad news is half that will go back to state.
So silly.
And there are some delays on their side with billing us for repayment. So that will be a looming. That will be a looming.
And are there
They sure
penalties
took
if we
that
don't pay
pension
them
money fast.
swiftly?
I don't believe there are, but we haven't gotten. We haven't.
Penalty if we
No
don't
problem grabbing
repay
pension
them
money.
at a certain term.
God forbid they gotta give us
Will
that.
they email us when our invoice is ready, and then they leave it up to us to
Right.
access the portal, get the invoice amount,
Okay,
and then
all right.
pay the amount.
So silly. Why can't they just give us half and call it a day? I mean,
It is what it is.
It's a accounting question.
Yeah, well,
Very good
because it makes too much sense and 7 or 10
You gotta
people will
keep
lose their
employees
job.
busy.
Yeah, someone's gonna lose their job if they did, right?
So if there aren't any questions, that's your number.
I would like to go back to our SWAT team member.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce him to the community, because I know being a retired SWAT guy with the county, how hard and how dedicated you have to be and how emotional calls can be. And I think the community should see Seth and his dedication and his hard work.
Seth? Seth Lamb, our eight-year veteran,
I've been about 8 years.
8-year veteran of the fire district, volunteered to participate in this program when it was in its infancy and has by all accounts done an incredible job in that capacity thus far. So thank you for your hard work.
Special weapons and tactics, the sheriff's department. Yeah,
Like actual SWAT.
Yeah, actual like real SWAT.
You'll see them on TV on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think we need to introduce.
Good call. Nice job. Bernie, do you have anything to?
I do. We were called upon, although TIP is not on the agenda, we were asked to consider contributing to an intergovernmental agreement between the village and the various taxing districts who have expressed significant concern about the impact that the TIP will have. There were 2 issues that were specifically suggested that we address, that the village would have an interest in supporting, and a third that became an issue but didn't have any flesh on its bones, and I should have found myself to put some flesh on the bones as part of the proposal. So the first was, it's an easy thing, and I think it's something that's a good idea, is having a representative on the board's zoning and planning commission. It would be a non-voting member, but at least we would get a look at any variances that they would be issuing, and we get a look at any amendments to their life safety code in advance, and we'll have guys at the table in discussing the wisdom of whatever changes there are or the need for changes that have not been made. The other one was maximizing our impact fees that the village would act to impose upon developers impact fees that were within the top 25% of surrounding areas. I inserted a radius of 25 miles. That's it's unlikely that that's particularly realistic that we would be able to identify each and every community, but it's realistic in terms of the idea that there's going to be so much development here, and that it's being invited and pursued. The idea of impact fees is that they do have an impact. The idea is that those impact fees cover the cost of covering those increased risks for the period of time that it takes to get those properties on the tax roll. And with regard to, since most of the plan development is going to be in the TIF, it's something that we just need to address. So I drafted a language to contribute to that process. The third was the recognition that if the community supports a referendum for relief from the property tax limitation law, it's the property tax extension limitation law, that there should be recognition of the fact that those revenues should be intact. Okay, and there is a formula with regard to where all of the TIF money is going and how it's going to be administered. And then there's a fund that's called a reserve fund, or really a surplus fund. And so the proposal that I made is that if there is a tax referendum passed, for those districts who pass such a referendum, that the revenues that would have been generated but for the TIF would be paid out to the districts from that revenue fund, to the extent that there are sufficient funds in that division of the collections of the increment that the TIF district would be collecting.
So let me clarify what you're saying is, if they're gonna get $50 from the district for the TIF, and a referendum passes, and we'll get an additional $25, they're gonna pay us the $25.
Right.
That was pretty much in there though, wasn't it?
What was that?
Wasn't that in the agreement?
Not for our districts. And it
I think it was
wasn't clear,
included, I think it was included in the second.
but it wasn't clear.
The second draft went
exactly
changed to
what it
taxing
was.
bodies. for-
Right, the
for-
second draft.
For
changed to
instance, if
taxing
we
bodies.
pass,
Right.
if we pass a referendum, okay, and let's take the 5-story building out.
Mhm.
If we were to pass a referendum, we would get and we pass a referendum that takes our rate from 3 to 6. We would be able to apply that 6% to that property as at its unimproved value. Okay, so we would get twice what we were getting before, but we wouldn't be getting any help protecting that. So the way that I proposed it is that we would get the entire increment as it related to those properties for our districts. And I believe that's what,
To improve properties,
pardon me?
improve properties.
Improved properties, yeah, so that to the extent that on these improved properties, the properties that were in TIF, that any revenues generated by the TIF would be used to pay, that ended up in the reserve fund, would be used to pay us the full value of that improved property at our increased rate.
Rob, do you remember the?
And that's more aggressive.
Because they did address it.
Yes.
In the second.
Yeah, but in the
Go ahead.
draft, it was not particularly. it was
You
not
did.
Someone in the room might have an idea.
Yeah.
I think first big credit was the village attorney, Kathy Elliott,
Mhm.
who did the research to come up with the idea in general.
Right.
I think Bernie, John Izzo, Dean Crone, and Kathy have all been working with how do they nuance that language to get it exactly right.
Okay.
But the idea of, I think every party's been very interested in making, and certainly supporting fire district in making sure that if a referendum is passed, funds go to the fire district.
So that's kind of what I remembered,
Mhm.
after our meeting and then after the second draft, so, okay, all right.
And we appreciate Attorney Weiler's help in kind of coming up with language to help make sure we get done what we need to get done.
Thanks, Frank. Anything else, sir?
No, that's about it.
You look awful official tonight.
Yeah, well, sometimes Halloween,
That's a good day.
it's costume.
Okay.
There's a comment online that probably, yeah.
Okay.
People read, I can't.
Thank you to the Chief Fire District Board for engaging in good faith and important conversation about TIF2 with the village as we plan for a bright future. Forward-thinking and collaborative boards make a big difference in our residents and keep making Winfield a special place to live.
That was from Dan Janowicz
Okay.
of the
Thanks,
village
Dan.
board.
Any more discussion? Okay. We have a enrolled business.
Actually, so Sorry, I'm sorry.
You missed it.
No, I didn't.
We are settled it.
Is there like hard copies of what you submitted to them?
I submitted, so what they sent to me was a PDF. So I then sent revisions in a letter form, indicating where this language should be done, and making, there's some grammatical things that bothered me. And so I did not, so my expectation was, and it was really hurry up, let's get this out so that it could be available
There
for
was
other
a meeting that
meetings,
was a deadline meeting.
with the expectation that it would be returned to me, and it has not.
Oh, we haven't seen a
It has
formal.
not.
And did you guys have conversations, or one of you two have conversations about this, about what got submitted back? Because this is news to me that anything got,
I don't know what Bernie, this is the first time I've heard what Bernie submitted back, but this is first time in the talk also. But we don't have a formal intergovernmental agreement yet. Everything has still been,
The language is
it's
still
been
being
going
worked.
back and forth. Right. So that's why we don't have a hard copy, okay?
And, don't underestimate the value of a place at the table in the planning and plan reviews, because there's a lot of devils in those details that.
Well, the first one would have been access to the apartments. We can't get in off of them.
Exactly, exactly. That's the.
And they put some kind of electrical box right there just in case, just to make things worse, just in case someone doesn't have to curb. So,
And then that's a big, oh, well, when it's built.
but that was something that, is it Pete?
Peter, yeah.
Peter, that talked to you about it and then dropped the ball. The chief has, there's been talk back and forth, and the chief is comfortable with the situation that we're in right now. So that'll get corrected.
So I have one more moment, just to clarify, I just forwarded to Chief Evans the last version of a red line piece, but it was not the version that we walked out the room afterward. There were still 3 modifications beyond that. And I don't know when or if another one will be generated, given the rest of the politics that are involved. At least you can see where it got to half hour before it was quoted.
There's a lot of red line. There's a lot of.
no, I understand. It's just we're, there's talk of, oh, we had an influence on this IGA, and then I've been watching the school board meetings on it, and, there's been multiple meetings on it, and we're not gonna meet again as our board unless we do a special meeting before the village board would be voting on this. So yeah, we might have had, our 2 cents. We don't know if that's on that final piece, because we're not, in some of the meetings that are happening, because we've been excluded from some of these meetings.
Well, we haven't showed up as a board, but this guy over here.
No, I know,
the
but
chief has been there and had.
Just in case you need it, you with the face.
So,
New guy.
but the issues were brought up during the first meeting with the school, and some great things came out of that. Changed it to taxing bodies, included the fire district and some things. We weren't the only ones that were left out. There were.
Oh, no,
It's not like they said, okay, we're gonna pick on them. They
Well, they may have.
they used a very narrow brush when they wrote it, and it got broader after some discussion. So there's some good things that have come out of it.
And to the credit of the school district,
Very much.
I say to the credit of the school district,
Right.
they were very forthright in coming to us and saying, hey, guys, it's not right that you're not in this. We are going to use our influence to make sure that these other taxing bodies, ourselves, the park district and others, are included in the language that's going into this document, because it's not just about the school district. It's not just about 3494. It's about the community as a whole. So to the credit of the, Mr. Hempy and the folks at the school board, they really took the initiative to be inclusive of us, which was great to see.
No, I just wanted, we've got, we had 13 people. This board has prided ourselves on being open and transparent, and nothing is happening behind closed doors. completely news to me. I knew that there were other versions of the IGA that are out there and being worked through. Wanted open and transparent because these are our taxpayers.
And we're working towards it. We're working towards a better solution.
And if I know I've been turning myself into the chief's report.
Here, superintendent's report. Okay, go for it.
I anticipate that there is no voting on an ITA by any body this week.
Nothing's gonna happen.
And certainly, when and if one comes through, it's the school district's intention that it's a community piece. And the school district feels that all the community pieces should be at the table. That's why we were grateful to have 2 members of the fire district and 2 members of the park district come and join us. So we, most importantly, didn't create something that would be a problem for any other taxing body. But if we could also do things that were supportive of our greater community and our taxing bodies, those were the 2 goals. And a real big thank you to Robin, George, that honored those goals as we try to work together to be expansive in that way. It's no ways intention not to do this. We want to do as much of this in the public because this is our public and all our voters, not necessarily our voters, all the same people. So we want to make sure that you have the best.
Yeah, and keep in mind that an intergovernmental agreement cannot be passed until all the boards are
In agreement.
Are in agreement with that. And I can't imagine that this is going to be resolved without 2 or 3 more drafts.
I can't imagine.
So I'll make sure that it gets circulated to all the board members. And it was my intention to do that if it had come back. But it had not yet. So
Obviously, you have one. We haven't seen one either.
And there isn't one that I, based on the one that I left Friday night with, there's one that was a half hour before I left Friday night, and those were some significant changes.
And then, the other thing too, is that this would not have come about had there not been significant participation in the initial board meetings that were the TIF boards, and where 2 things were expressed. Is one is a willingness to collaborate with, that this was, that everybody had a representative interest of all of the people within the village, and 2, that this caused significant problems, because otherwise, the way the TIF presentations are made, it's all peace and light. I mean, it's just all, we're gonna build a wonderland out of this swamp, and well, that's okay if you're the only one that's got keys to the wonderland. And so I think that process, made it clear to the people that there were issues, and to the credit of the village, they kept their kept true to the representation that they were going to be inclusive in the plan. So but it is important to show up, and particularly the transparency that Jenny is talking about is important, because it does move that collaboration. Since people are watching.
Yeah. Anything else before I go to old business? Just want to make sure.
I'm good.
Okay, I'm teasing.
Randy.
So do we have a qualified person to sit on the planning and zoning?
Got 2 of them right
We have
there.
2 of them right there.
That's why I'm
Don't worry, I made sure to go. I made sure to go one for around. Although in fairness, you probably could as well.
There are 4 people that could sit on that board or participate with.
I think it's a wise move.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know the chief is looking to attend more meetings, so.
Can't get it.
One thing I would like to see is perhaps, instead of having a specific person represent on the board, that we have a person for the board. So if one chief can't make it,
Yeah.
another one can.
I think
A
that's.
seat at the a seat there as opposed to a defined person there. Yeah.
And the way it was worded was that we would appoint a representative And it would not necessarily have to be named, is that we would send a representative whenever they met. So that's what. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to get that.
That is good.
Do you have anything to add?
No,
I
apologize for.
So ends the superintendent's report.
Okay, so.
That one off.
No need for you to apologize. Do we have any old business? Okay, consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Second. And just for the sake of saying it, I know Chief touched on it earlier, but again, we are running about 1 month over. We'll be doing 13 months work in 12 months.
So-
Still on pace for that.
Yes, as of this morning, I check every morning when I come in. As of this morning, when I opened up my computer, we were 210 calls above last year, and we ran 18 calls thus far today, so.
Yeah.
That number is
I
increasing.
also noticed that by the end of the year, it looks like we're gonna double our mutual aid calls.
Mhm.
And it's good and bad, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But at least showing that we're able to at least.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
So a lot of that goes back to well, first of all, we're not the only agency that suffers with staffing issues. And several of our neighbors are also combination departments or career departments that have a contracted paramedic service. There's a staffing shortage in our business nationally. It's just the way that it is. So a lot of this stems from the fact that we're all going around helping each other. I mean, at one point today, I think every one of our surrounding neighbors was in our town at least once.
Wow.
And we were in most of theirs.
Mhm.
It's becoming a county department. As a result of.
Yeah.
Nature takes its course.
There was a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's a new business.
Yes,
We need to discuss and take action on the amended tax levy request letter from the pension fund.
Pension fund audit came back with some adjustments that reduced the gas. Money for the pension fund recommendation was amended.
That's a roll call vote.
We need a motion first.
I'm sorry, I think it's.
I'll make a motion to follow the recommendation.
I'll second that.
President Kellis.
Yes.
Secretary Sess.
Yes.
Treasurer Hand.
Yep.
Trustee Sager.
Yes.
Trustee Simpson.
Yes.
Second on the agenda is discuss and approve request for proposals for a new fire engine.
So this is something that it was a budgeted item. It was in this year's budget. We went through all that, and the board is keenly aware of the need for it. And it was something that was in progress, and it is our understanding that most, if not all, of the vehicle manufacturers in supply chain issues and all the other stuff that's well documented are having periodic considerable price increases, and they're expecting more at the beginning of the year. So Deputy Chief Ermer joined us, and I immediately put him to work expediting the process of getting the specifications built to be ahead of, I mean, if it's a 6 or 8% increase, that can be thousands upon thousands of dollars on a $500,000 vehicle. So if we can expedite.
If we get lucky and only get a $500,000.
Indeed.
Right, I mean, vehicles can run $600,000, $700,000.
Yeah. The three most recent engine purchases in our neighborhood were all in the $650,000 range. Nice vehicles, but
Right.
but so we wanted to expedite that to try and beat the next round of price increases if we could, and they worked absolutely diligently. Deputy Chief Ermer, the person that headed up the committee, Lieutenant Fermento, Lieutenant Roman, and Firefighter Burke were both on the committee with him, and they did a lot of work, put in a lot of extra hours to try and get this thing done to save our community thousands upon thousands of dollars and get a right built fire apparatus. So if you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank those guys more than anything else. They did a lot of great visits. They were on the phone. Brian Berg really knows the industry really well, so he's quite the asset to have on the committee for building that. And Rich and Roman, they just did all the work really. All I had to do was meet with them.
We're looking at all the other fire engines in the Western Alliance. Is there a protocol to try to keep the specs similar so that?
That is an excellent question. So in the Alliance, one of the things, because we're as dialed in as we are, and compliments to us for that, things like you can go to pretty much any, not every, but pretty much any of the engines, for example, we're an engine place. And we work off of the back of the engines. A lot of agencies will work, when they show up on the scene of a fire, the engine will park out front and will pull what's called a crossley. Those folded up hoses you'll see right behind the passenger compartment. In our guidelines, the way we operate is the engine pulls along of the scene, lays out a supply line to a hydrant. That way the truck company or a truck company can have the front of the building so that they can ladder up for ventilation or rescues. And a truck tends to have more equipment on it, so you can use that as a toolbox. So there's some stuff like that. So consequently, the Alliance works off of the back. So we pull our attack lines off of the back hose bed of the engine. And to your point, the hose beds are all as close as you can get to identical. So I can walk up right now. I could get up, go to a Bloomingdale engine up at 21, and I know their hose load, and I can pull it off the same as I could ours. And so that's one of those things. So, and then compartmentalization similarly amongst the engines or the trucks or the squads are the same way. So you can pretty much, with relative degree of certainty, go to the same compartment in one of our partner agencies' rigs and know where to find hand tools or hose appliances or a ventilation fan or that kind of thing. So yes, that's an excellent question, and very much to your point, part of that had to be incorporated into the specs.
You're gonna have a spec where the undercoat
The date and time of bids due and bids open, it correlates with our December meeting, correct? So we can take action at that point. Is that the
Exactly
intention?
it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you noticed on it, the sealed bid opening will be on the 13th, and that gives us enough time to go through all of them, make our recommendations to the
Perfect.
board, and then by the next meeting, we can approve and sign, and everything will be ready to go then.
Excellent.
Good coordination.
Any more discussion?
And thank you for sending it by email, because that was 100 and some pages.
Oh,
that- No, there is no need to.
So do I have a motion? Second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Bob?
Trustee Ellis?
Yes.
Secretary Sess? Treasurer Gainer?
Yep.
Trustee Saylor?
Yes.
Trustee Simpson?
Yes. Discussion and possible action on surplus items declaration list. That's just gotta be like getting rid of a bunch of old friends, huh? There's old Facebook
You can say it that way.
friends do.
So with his spare time when he started, he was also tasked with that mission, which he's done very well with.
So you'll see down there's the disposition, whatever is approved, and we put in the recommendations about what can be done with it. And you'll see some of them that are marked either dispose of or donate. I have reached out to 2 departments so far and gotten response from one. There was the Washington Park Fire Department that burned down near East St. Louis recently. Did not hear anything back from them, and they did get a large response back. So they probably don't need too much right now. I've also reached out to the Winona Fire Protection District down just not too far from Bloomington, Normal, that area, a little southwest of there. And they are interested in anything we may be able to give. And what happens is it actually comes out, it's one of the aldermen in Warrenville whose family is down there in that area. Warrenville had donated in the past. I reached out to them, said, is there anybody? What they usually end up doing is taking it, and then there's a whole conglomerate down there. They got a good group, and he kind of distributes.
Parse it out from there.
Parse it out from there.
Great.
So, like I said, so if they can't use it, we'll dispose of it, but there's quite a bit of, good that can still be done with a lot of the equipment. And, they're happy to have it. So that's where those recommendations.
One question I had, and this is, oh, sorry, go ahead. Okay. One question I have, but this was more so in relation to this document.
Yes.
Formatting of this, is this based off of that new system that we got? I say, because this just, we talk a lot about, ways that the district is doing things to try and make it better for the guys who are actually doing everything every day. And the way this is laid out is just really well done. So this was my first time, I think all of our first time seeing a document that actually is within those procedures that are being written. And I just want to say that this looks really well done. So just as a side note to other things we purchased, it looks like that's going to go in a really good direction. So I just want to point that out.
It's gonna go in a good direction. It's fantastic. It really is. They're really improved.
Yeah.
And grant funded.
And great.
Yeah.
Robin, are you sure that we
And then
don't need
you
a
had one.
typewriter?
Sorry.
You know, I used it for the longest time, for certain things.
Double, I mean,
Your
just.
1099s were typewriter for a long time.
There was like a power outage or something. Are we sure? Okay.
They're really grand driving.
I'll trade you.
Yeah, because they don't do the bills anymore.
No.
It's just crazy.
Right.
Chief, stuff that lays around.
Hey, Chief, question on the air packs, dispose or donate. Is there any problems with those that we would hesitate on donating those, or?
So it is customary when you donate them that it's, conditioned as they're delivered and they have to, sign
That's a whole harmless.
Thank you.
So there's two ways we can do that. We can do it through the Illinois Fire Chiefs, who actually maintains it. So it can go to the Illinois Fire Chiefs and then go out from there, and then that liability is taken care of. Or I do have a couple copies of the hold harmless that we would do. I have one that we did with the college years ago, and they did a hold harmless, and they may be one of them that take our airbags also.
And we got one too from West Chicago.
And
So we've got a few
gave us a
copies.
copy of theirs. So.
I just want to make sure we're not on
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
that's going out, especially the air packs,
Mm-hmm.
that if there's a failure. then-
Any more discussion?
It's small and petty and stupid, but I'm crazy like that. And there's just a whole bunch of spelling things in
I'm
it.
circling the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Way ahead of you.
No spell check on this. On the system.
I don't know, I have.
It wasn't really directed at you.
Yeah, you can do the learn new word thing. When you learn the ones that are red underlined, then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore.
It's just the proofreader in me. Like, I'm like,
Okay, so do we have a motion then?
I'll make the motion to approve the surplus items declaration list in the, with the recommended course of action on each item. There's nothing there that I could see why we would tell them to do something different with,
And all
so
spelling corrections.
go for it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ron?
President Dallas?
Yes.
Secretary Sis? Treasurer Gainer? Secretary Saylor?
yeah.
We're not spending money yet on that one.
Well, still.
We
There is
voted.
one item that's gonna be up for auction.
typewriter.
Hey, you
It's
know.
going to Antiques of Winfield across the street here. They're gonna-
We might be able to get like $5 or $10. The one ribbon.
Yeah,
So we gotta have it.
It's a Tom Hanks, he collects antique.
there you go. Can he buy us a fire station in the process? They will sell it to him for
We'll sell them to it for.
a fire station.
Give it to him for a fire. Okay, the next is to discuss and take action on the
Sustainability. Mhm.
report and right sizing. Have in front of you. Everyone have a chance to read this, okay? There's some discussion. Who wants to start?
Well, I'm gonna say the raising of the ambulance fees. Probably a necessity, I hate to say.
Yep,
So we're
actually,
not, go ahead.
there's a handout on everyone's table. We just got it today. From the ambulance billing service with projections about what that would, the impact of.
And we are not raising it to the
Maximum.
maximum. We're bringing the maximum is 22,970 to 22,299 and 74 cents. We're raising it to $2,275.
And the per mile fee stays the same.
Per mile fee stays the same. So we're not as high as some other people in our area.
Yes.
It could pay for two people, right? Which would make, so doing that, and if we can get a referendum passed for 12 cents, which is technically a 33% increase, sounds huge when you put it that way. What did we figure out? It was about 100, what was the number again?
Yes, sir. There was a 33% increase would result in an 11.1187 increase for $100 of assessed valuation to a rate of 0.4785, which again is a 33% increase. We would be going for referendum to be the lowest taxing fire district within DuPage County by 14 cents, 2 cents more than the amount we're asking for.
And then what effect would that have on an average home of, let's say, $300,000?
Assessed valuation.
Yes, that's valuation.
300, so $39.56 increase for a home value of 100,000, so less than 120.
$120. So less than a fancy meal. Less than a fancy meal. We'll put 2 firemen on staff, which can man a ambulance and get there a little bit quicker. Can give our firefighters that are working
7 days a week.
100 hours, 120 hours, a break, a chance to see their family. Something that we take for granted because we come home and we don't have to leave unless we have a meeting. We be with their family. They don't have a choice. They've got to come out and be with your family some nights because it's an emergency. So $120 roughly, really not a lot of money for everything to get. So that's one of the things we're going on.
So Mr. President, if I may, just to kind of give an overview of the report itself.
Sure, please do.
For the 3 past referenda that we requested, those were comprehensively designed programs that would ultimately result in the ability to remodel the 2 existing stations, ultimately lead to a 3-member jump company crew at Station 2. And, you know, the rate was the rate. It ultimately, because of the size of our district and our equalized assessed valuation, translated into an approximately $2 million increase, understanding that it's a simple math equation. In order to have, because again, our employees, we have people on duty 24 hours, 365 days a year. And each staffed position is 3 employees. So when you start doing all the math and all the numbers, it's probably $400,000 an employee, which understand in Winfield Fire Protection District is considerably lower than our neighboring agencies. One of our direct neighbors, their firefighters top out in salary alone in excess of $20,000 more than our employees do. So our employment costs are low, relatively speaking, but that's what it costs. So if you had 3 employees down there, the amount of money that it would take to just the communications dedicated communications lines themselves are in excess of $20,000 a year for the station. So if we add all those off, along with the $450,000 grant, and you did the math, it turned out to be that was the ask, and that was why the ask was the ask.
Right.
And we just arrived at how much money it was going to take to accomplish that mission, and then the rate was adjusted accordingly for the referendum request. So it wasn't some sort of, and this was for a comprehensive solution for decades. This was a true fix. Addresses response times and distances to the south side of our district. It took care of that jump company for that extra crew, which could, again, fire call comes in, hop in a fire apparatus, medical call comes in, hop in an EMS asset, respond to the call. That was the ask. I feel that we communicated what the ask was about very well to our community, and they repeatedly said no. So the mission, as I understood it, was to come up with a plan B, and this is it. And what this entails is the increase in the ambulance costs, our GEMT, going back to my earlier report, our GEMT every year, as part of that, as part of the state requirement, we have to submit a cost report. So we give them all of our books, and they figure out what it costs us to run a call. They arrived at $2,299.74 is what it costs us to run a call. So that could be the max we could bill, with the understanding that Medicare and Medicaid patients are capped. So, which impacts all that as well, and all of this and statistics and how many Medicare, Medicaid patients we transport, how many private pays, how many corporate insurance. So ambulance fees, going back to the fact that, and I have always said, and everyone in this community is fully aware that I have always said our strategic needs are this. We need more people to respond to more calls. We need the apparatus and resources for them to respond with, and we need a place to put it all. That was always, and it has always been, our strategic needs. And that plan would have accomplished it. So coming back to a plan B, how can we do this for less? What can we do that's close was the plan that is presented. Centrally locating to the one facility. The ambulance fees, along with the requested rate increase, again, of a 33% increase on our 35 cents, which is the lowest in the county by a long way, a long way. I'm not certain that there aren't paper districts that actually have a higher rate than ours. So again, the ask would be for a referendum increase to be the lowest.
To still be the lowest.
To still be the lowest by more than we're asking for.
Now, to do a 12 center, how soon are we going for another round of referendum?
That's the point of the discussion tonight is this is a plan. This is a plan B.
Absolutely.
And it was well thought out. There's supporting documentation from some financial institutions with some of the numbers. So if we were to go into debt to build a new facility, if we were going into debt to fix any of the two facilities we have, this is the kind of numbers we're talking about. We just don't have the $400,000+ of annual interest payments. We don't have enough money to go into debt. So, and then, so that all ties into it is
Too poor.
is the combination of factors to collateralize and then pay interest on a debt load, being able to add a person, and then after we get to managing our debt load is be able to put on another person on top of that. At that point, we would be able to respond a second medic unit potentially if everyone's on duty or full staffing. So there's a lot of information in this document. Again, all the financial stuff from some places. The state statute with respect to transferring properties between districts, because if we were to relocate, there are areas of our district that would be very difficult to respond to appropriately. So that's something to be consideration. And that also enjoins with it a revenue loss. So it's not just like we can do it. And actually, we've been running numbers. We just got some numbers from the county, what day?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
we got some numbers from the county that, on the impacts, which in some areas could be substantial, and in some areas not as much, but that's all part of all of this bigger plan. Or how do we manage within this kind of a framework to a plan that to arrive at the strategic needs that I've been yelling about for several years. It's how we arrive at that plan and then proceeding with that plan. We know the plan, well articulated as it was,
Just didn't work.
didn't work, so we have to find plan B. Similarly, I also included everyone, everyone have a nice read with one of the financial advisors we've been dealing with, gave us his technical manual for the detail law, which actually is good reading in terms of information. So that's the umbrella of what this memorandum was about, and then the board's feelings and how we want to address it moving forward to have that cohesive plan. Thank you, sir, for letting me talk.
Thank you. Thanks for doing such a good job explaining it. Who wants to start?
I'll go. Somebody has to.
Right.
First off, I mean, I think the ambulance, adjusting the ambulance fees to be more in line with what our costs are to run an ambulance call makes sense. So to me, that's a no-brainer. As for the everything else, one of my concerns is, we've had an ask that would get us a long-term viable solution. It appears to me that the ask now barely gets us to next week, okay, by comparison's sake. And within those two extremes, there is a middle somewhere that I think can be palatable, that I think gets us more revenue towards the goals that we have to be able to serve our community in a way that's beneficial to everybody, that provides for our staff, to our firefighters, to be able to do the things that they need to do in a safe function. And so my only concern, one of my concerns is simply that, whether, I don't believe that our ask before was too much, but the voters have said, yes, it was. I worry that asking for too little, I worry that we only get one yes out of the voters at this point. And if that one yes, and then it's going to be used against us, well, we just gave you a yes 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we're not going to do that again. I worry that we shoot ourselves in the foot and we'll find ourselves in the same situation or worse by not getting an appropriate amount at a time where we have the best opportunity to get a pass. So that concerns me. The other side of it, in terms of from a facility standpoint, I have been a very, very big advocate for the need of Station 32 down by Roosevelt Road. I still remain steadfast in my belief that would be the best option for our district, is to be in that building and some other location as well.
I don't think you get an argument in the room about
that being said,
that's
whether or not that's feasible is another avenue. And given the cost it would take to renovate here versus the cost that we've seen for new construction on the property on County Farm, I think if we have to be a single location department, it only makes sense at this point to push ourselves to County Farm. Not necessarily building the fanciest building in the world. We're not going to be the Taj Mahal, as was told to me during my campaign. It's not going to be a Taj Mahal. It's going to be a building that can house firefighters and firefighter equipment and can still help people save lives. And it's unfortunate that that's the boat we're in, but I think that's the boat we're in. And so I think that if it means utilizing what we can get from a financial into us for selling a property in order to achieve that goal, to give us a building that's going to last us another 20 or 30 or 40 years, I think we need to seriously consider that, in spite of the fact that we know it's going to mean losing out on, there's going to be a succession of areas that are outlined in the documents from the chief that we would need to secede out to neighboring districts because of the increase in distance to them. And that may just be the first ones that have to go, depending on how it all shakes out. So that's kind of where I apologize for rambling. That's just kind of where my head's been at as we've looked through all the documents and read it and thought about and tried to figure out a way to make it work. You know, obviously we're not going to get everything that we should, in my opinion, get to help out our district, but asking for the bare minimum doesn't seem like the right course of action either.
Was we project, when you were doing the projections, based on this passing, how long was the fix that you said?
Well, I had said for the previous ask that it was a 20-year or even multi-generational fix. This one's not a fraction of that. It's Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I don't like it, but yep.
I think you gotta do some analysis as why people are saying no. I don't think it's the amount. And I think this last referendum, we've had converts. Okay, people who were steadfastly against it and will now listen. So if you, and I think it's the truism is, in my experience with other districts, you get this once. Okay, and if you don't ask for enough, and I don't, a lot of the people who are voting against this would vote against it whether it was a 1 cent increase or a 12-cent increase or a 60% increase. So it might be helpful to find out why people are voting no before you commit to, before you predict that, hey, if we ask just for a little less, and well, the next time we'll ask for a little less, so you can't really settle a case by saying, here's the offer, and somebody says, well, no, that's not the number. And then you just keep reducing or increasing your number until you hit it. That's never, you're never going to find out what's underneath that. So I think it would be a mistake to presume that people are saying no because the number is too low. Is too high.
As I recall, and I don't remember which referendum, it could have been number 3, it could have been number 5, it could have been number 13. So one of them was 41%.
Right.
33%, not that far away, and they turned out 41%. Yeah. So, I agree with you. They either don't want a tax increase and all, and I don't blame them. And the percentage is what scares everybody. But a percentage of 33% of 2 is squat compared to 33% of 200.
Right.
And and that's what people aren't seeing in their head is the 30% we would be asking for, or the 60% or 100%. 100% is 1 is still 1, and it's the dollars are so low, but the way you have to framework it on a referendum makes it sound like you're asking for a big increase, when the reality of it is it isn't.
We are asking for a big increase, but it's not as large of
it's a large percentage, but it's
right,
not a big well, it's a big increase in everything's comparable, right?
But
so I guess my point is I agree that whether it's 33 or 41 or 50, it ain't gonna matter. Now, if you 100% might be a little hard to for them to palate, but by the same token, ceding property to other communities, even though it's far away because people chose not to vote for more money. But to ask the public for more money and then turn around and say we're going to give them property away that's paying money, that math doesn't work for me either. So I mean, if that's what we're in the mutual aid program, and if those properties are far away and there's an end that close by, that's what mutual aid is all about until we can get there.
But I think the effort this time put into the conversation the things that you were just talking about is getting people away from looking at that percentage. When they look at a 68% tax increase, they think their entire bill is going to go up by 68%.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so the conversations that were being had in people's driveways this time reduced it to what does this need and what does it cost me to give that, And oh, by the way, oh, that means a 68% of just this little portion of my bill. And I think that's what a lot of the conversation was had, you know, and you know, we've had it here so many times that it's innately, you know, it's innately understood what those effects are. So I think it's the amount of persuasion that you can have with regard to the need and, you know, indicating that it is not a significant investment in your own safety. And
It's not
so,
a fine
and
amazing.
so, but I agree that the difference between 30 and 50 isn't going to make that difference. It's what people are brought to understand in the drive.
I find it amazing that Park District, our Forest Reserve, they can ask for a large increase. We'll pass it all day long. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't think the Park District has ever had a referendum fail. I just don't get it.
Everybody likes swings.
It's also a
When
smaller
it comes to life
constituency.
and safety of somebody's family, they vote it down.
Winfield
So
Park District's bigger than you think it is. It's outside of the city limits. Winfield.
That's true.
And getting bigger.
Yes.
Jenny?
I mean, I guess like my biggest problem has always been talking about the Band-Aid, because it is only a Band-Aid of shutting down Station 2. You know, we talked about a smaller number, that's only a Band-Aid. Shutting Station 2 down is only a Band-Aid. We saw the numbers, it's not this huge amount of money we're gonna get, it's not gonna be a sustainable amount of money, it doesn't pop up again and more come. If you've driven down County Farm, granted in these COVID times, it's different, but still, if you've driven down County Farm when they're going in at 9 a.m. or when they're shutting down for the day at between 3 and 5 usually? I mean, it's usually a good hour time. You can't get down County Farm. You can't get down Roosevelt. Traffic is backed up for miles. So our, time that was on that study on County Farm does not take that into consideration, because the county building was not what it is now.
So
When was the
so
study,
basically
16
what
years
you're-
ago or whatever?
So basically what you're saying, for an hour or two, the morning and the afternoon, it's kind of like sitting by a train.
No, it's worse,
Like
I
it is
don't- I
here
don't
every
think so.
15
Like
minutes.
It is
places are,
worse.
I don't think so.
because they're on Manchester, they're on Gary's Mill, they're stacked up on all the arteries that they use to get around the bigger traffic. It is, go down, drive it, it is far
But
worse.
I do think that with lights and sirens, you're getting around that faster than a train that you can't move. You can't move that train. And so if that train stops because of
Again, agree to
congestion,
disagree, had a business on
Yeah.
Winfield Road for over 100 years, drove these, had semis and trucks having to drive these roads. I know what the traffic is like all day long and how it just gets worse and worse and people don't care. Again, my street's a prime example. My street is blocked. No offense, you know where we're at with this. You know where we're at with it. My street is just a homeowner street that is blocked for 20 minutes every morning and afternoon, plus middle of the day pack up. Blocked. You can't get an engine or an ambulance through. And that's just a residential street. People don't care. Cops are knocking on their windows. They don't care. Lights and sirens, they don't care. The same thing on Roosevelt and County Farm. So if we're going to talk about completely eliminating our chance to have something on the south side of town, I think we need some type of traffic study, or there has to be some type of study we could get done.
Station 2, just to clarify it, has never been open per se. It was a call station. So.
Because we were a volunteer company.
Right, and so they kept equipment there, they ran there, they jumped in it, and they could handle things on.
I'm well aware.
I know you are, but you want to say that closing, Station 2 has never really been open in the last 20
never been
years. I mean, it's never been a station, it's been.
It was where the
Store.
closest responders went to that
Right.
lived on the south side of town. Well aware, my father was one of them for 18
I'm
years.
just saying,
We're trying to find where the argument is. There's nobody there now, and hasn't been for years and years.
Because we're completely eliminating it, and look at our, look
It's
at
been
the,
eliminated. It hasn't been part of the.
but it's always been a possibility that it could get, we could get
That's where-
funded and
my-
reopen it.
That's where the 13 referendums have come into play, that unfortunately, that dream has gone
Sailed.
bye-bye. Okay, the Station 2 as much as it is an important asset to the safety of the people on the south side, Steve will argue all day, Chief will argue all day, that in a perfect world, we'd be on County Farm and Winfield Road. And we would maximize the safety, maximize our time, maximize everything for the community. The community has voted it down 13 times. You've just got to be crazy to go and ask again for the same thing. I mean,
So
armadillos are smarter than that.
you're talking about asking for,
Let's ask for nothing. Let's ask for nothing. Give them, ask for nothing and just perpetuate until we can't perpetuate anymore. That's what the community really wants. They want things to stay the same.
but think about what Bernie just said. What does the community want?
Can't we do a surveys,
We don't know what the community wants.
mail a survey out and see what kind of responses we get from that
So you only
survey?
get about
Well,
3% back from the survey.
My bigger concern would be the expense you'd spend on it, and with the people
Survey's
who,
gonna cost
it's gonna cost a bunch of money, and the people who are most likely to respond are probably the most likely to say yes. So are we really getting the full answer to the depth at which it is, right?
Are we giving the community a chance to give us their feelings?
Yeah, I think we're here every third Tuesday of the month, and we've got, we've got online opportunity, which thankfully we've got a load of participants today, but 10 people does not make the community, unfortunately. We've had, between the efforts of Chief and Luke, there's been numerous opportunities for people to come and speak at driveway sessions, at parking lots, at you name it. Access to the board, access to the process, I think is not the reason why people are saying no.
I wanna ask Randy. Randy was a no guy for a long time, am I correct?
No, not at all.
Because I always thought you were one that was not necessarily for a referendum until.
That was my neighbor who was a fireman. Joe.
Oh, Spanian?
Yeah.
No, this is, I'm talking about,
No, I've always been supportive of the department.
I thought, my mistake, I apologize. I actually, it's somebody I knew was a hard no until they actually started, still not showing up, but listening to what somebody actually said and didn't realize what was really going on. Because it's easy to fall into that trap because you're busy with your own lives. And, the neighbor down the street says that the fire department doesn't need it. San Diego says the fire department doesn't need it. And nobody ever actually calms down to find out what it is we truly do need. And then when you find out, and I think it was one of the driveway things that Luke here had done, and when he was explaining what was going on, and all of a sudden the light bulb went off. It's, wow, I never realized how bad things were, because they start seeing pictures of, the countertops where they're trying to brush your teeth and they're all broken up and falling apart, and a roof leak and the foundation leak, and it's and so. And when I'd like to talk to that one person, what was it that made you see the light? I can't remember who it was.
I agree, it'd be good to know. I just, unfortunately, I just don't think I don't know if we get enough valuable information for the cost it would do to do it. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Can we put something online?
The best thing you could do is put like a Google form together and hope you get some responses.
You could do a Google form, Survey
Google,
Monkey,
doing
like there's.
Google forms are free. Survey Monkey, I think, has a small fee, but
Maybe
doing
we
something
could do
online,
a
that would be.
GoFundMe page for a new building.
Might work.
Yeah, we gotta hit your goal and don't give you a
Why
cash.
don't you research that survey? If you want to do it, find out what the cost would be, how hard it is to set up. Certainly,
5 minutes.
Any-
It's
any-
5 minutes.
And Google forms is free.
but
So we just need the
any
questions.
information, positive or negative, that we get is a great feedback.
Absolutely.
Great feedback.
If we're not having to spend the thousands to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably have public comments right now.
Jump right in.
Well, when I talk to a lot of people, and I used to be a committeeman for many years, and I talked to people all over village. And, you know, up in Klein Creek, they get instantaneous, they don't care. They're close, they say they're closer to Carroll Stream than they are to Winfield. They get faster response times there. Most people, even on the south side, and I totally disagree with them, you know, we got that fire department on Wheaton. They don't, you know, so there's all sorts of excuses, but then they don't look at it like, you know, and I'd say to them, but we're really mooching on, you know, we really need a better department ourselves to serve ourselves. And you know, people out in the Netherlands, you know, they get West Chicago, you know, in the Warrenville part of, you know, or Cantini Woods, they've got West Chicago, Warrenville will be there. So people really look at it like, well, that's what mutual aid is, and we pay for all of that. And really, you got to somehow get around all of that and explain the very importance of this department.
And actually, the terminology mutual aid, you gotta be able to give aid to them also.
Right.
You can't do that if you don't have the money.
Right.
If we can't get our own district.
But it, you know, what is
But that's an
the,
education process.
you know, well,
very good
maybe, you know, it's what is the importance of the Winfield Fire District? You know, what is the importance of it? You know, Wheaton's right down the road from me. They're there. I see the ladder truck go by my house 2 times a day. You know, followed by a Winfield ambulance.
Well, just try to check a book out at a library that you don't own. Try to check a book out in a library district that you don't live in. You don't get to check that book out. That's, you know, but, you know, so the feeling of the mutual aid, at some point in time, the train is gonna quit putting a car on for us to, you know, to put people, to take on passengers without.
Yeah,
buying
but people have heard that threat too. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like we're sitting here threatening,
Right.
but I mean, they've heard that, well, Wheaton's gonna stop sending people over, Carroll Stream's getting upset, you know. And are they not? They haven't acted on it yet. I don't know if they've even had formal discussions about it.
But that I was just pointing out
Right.
the difference between the services that we do, and I think the chief explained that one of the meetings is that we are always gonna come, you know, because it's in the DNA of firefighters.
It's what they
That
do.
they're not
right.
gonna sit home when there's a neighbor in need, whether it's in our district or it's
agree.
across the thing.
And I don't
That's the
think
difference
this is-
between, you know, how, you know, that we're never gonna withhold our services.
We're not.
Other
But we
places
have,
will.
but there are times when we just can't get there.
Exactly.
And we didn't get to the fire today, did we? Because the engine broke. We didn't get there. Hate that to be my house. Oh, someone else got there, but we would have been there first. So the second team got there slower than we could have gotten.
And every minute a fire burns, it doubles in
Right.
size, so that fire was twice the size it needed to be.
So more discussion. Randy?
No, I think everybody's hit
Okay.
it.
So.
I agree with him though, that we can't just take the Band-Aid approach because one shot, you know.
Okay, so what do you want to do? What do you want to do as a group? You want to go for the same ask we did last year? The silver bullet, the one that's going to cure everything? It's going to open Station 2, eventually put us on County Farm Road, and be able to protect all angles of, all
I guess
edges of ours.
we came up with a number that the Band-Aid plus something that would sustain getting part-time help, leave shifts when
There's no
somebody's
part-time
hurt.
help, we lost a guy already that we just hired. You know, I mean, he's gone already and not gone
My
already,
point
he's
is,
taking
a
another
little
job.
extra money to
Right.
relieve, pay the overtime, whatever it takes to keep guys paid.
We need to hire, we don't need to, if we hire people, we'll actually save money by not having to pay overtime. And these guys can go home and get the rest that they need and not be working hurt. I mean, you know, even a football player who makes a lot more than our guys he's got turf toe, or he hurt his elbow, or he sprained his finger, he doesn't play for 2 weeks. Our guys get turf toe, sprain their finger, maybe fall down and smoking, like whatever they do, they're right up 15 minutes later, going to the next call, maybe not carrying as much hose, but still carrying their load. I mean, so that, we have to find relief for our employees by hiring more employees. And the effect of that is going to better serve the community, because we'll have the people here that will be able to get out. We'll have a, please, I'm sorry.
My point is that whatever the need is, and a little more for a cushion, so that we're not having to go back and ask for more, but not necessarily enough to remodel this building, remodel that building, and, because the silver bullet's been shot down 13 times. So if we met somewhere in the middle, that might be a happy middle. But there again, I don't disagree.
Can we
If
table
there's
this
something other than money,
and see what kind of response we get for a month?
we could.
If we can work together and get something out within the next.
What's the deadline of putting the language?
Yeah.
We have another 2 months to.
Right.
They have to get the referendum 90 days before the ballot proposition.
You know, we put something out on next door that we're looking for responses. Please go to this, our website. But see what we get. Next door, those people are crazy.
I'm willing to bet that we could
They
ask
are-
Luke
they
to
feed.
put it through to his contacts as well.
And I don't
Or
mean
they'll
they're
post it
crazy,
on
crazy. I
that
mean,
side.
they're, you know,
Yeah, they're very.
they're very passionate about, you know, the.
Well, and if we do with like Google Forms, it doesn't have to come down after that first 30 days. You could have a big chunk of responses come in initially, but you might finally get that golden answer that we've been trying to look for, of like, what are we not communicating? It might not come for 2 months,
Right.
but then we know. And we know what we have to change in our messaging, because we're clearly not communicating it. We're communicating it how we understand and how our supporters understand, because they're having face-to-face conversations, but we're missing that something that is not able to get to those people that are thinking that we're tied to the village or tied to
I think
those
Randy
things.
probably hit one of the best points is we have mutual aid. What do I need to, what reason does this district exist when we will come and put my fire out? I think that's something that really needs to be educated to the taxpayer. You know, I can't say, well, I don't like Winfield School, I think I'll just put my kid over in Carroll Stream. I'd have to move, wouldn't I? Yeah. So,
Well, the
I
problem.
don't know why they choose that.
yeah, but I'm just saying, I mean, you live in Winfield, you go to the Winfield School and you get educated there. If you don't like that, then you have the opportunity for private schools. Unfortunately, the voter does not have the opportunity for the county fire department, because there's no such thing. I heard that one time. Well, the county will show up. Huh? The county?
That's what I said.
Where's that building?
It was a political football years ago.
Right.
And,
Mhm.
you know,
So, but yeah, we can postpone it.
It's the mutual aid, everybody's comfortable that somebody's gonna come and
Right.
rescue them. And there's not the importance and the focus on how much Winfield's fire department is needed and should be appreciated.
okay, so when those people are counting on Wheaton or West Chicago or Carroll Stream to come get them, and they're already out on a call and they're expecting, okay, now Carroll Stream Station off of Lies to come and get,
Well, that's
them,
when you see.
you know,
that's when
or
you see the
they
gears.
want a station from downtown Wheaton to come, you know, because the guys are on FAPA route. Come on, man. That's why we have a fire department here.
Great.
To cover our people.
3 times.
3 times.
So,
They pay $3 for every dollar that.
yeah.
Well, we can,
We're better off
Randy,
giving up Pine Creek. We're gonna give up any residents, because then they can pay Carroll Stream to raise.
yeah, but they
Which
can
is going up.
but they can afford it. If we postpone this to next meeting, we're gonna have to have a special meeting to redraft this memorandum, or we're gonna have to talk to staff on how to redo it so that it's ready for next meeting. So, because we really do have to get moving on this. It's not something we can postpone and then postpone again and then fail.
Well, I say the next meeting, we have to act on it, but I think give us a chance to at least get some public feedback. You
So is
know,
everyone-
whether it's 5 people or,
So, I mean, so we would have to consider having a special meeting to make sure that we're all on the same page with this, or can this be put out something that we can read and respond individually?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
And it may tie right back into what you're saying. As it sits right now, we would have to act on everything within the document. So, for example, where's the benefit of holding off on acting on the increase on the ambulance rate? So perhaps it's not that, actionable items that exist, I think action should be taken. I don't think there's a benefit to, so that, I just want to make sure I know how that
So we
gets
can just
broken
pull
down.
that out and do
So we
that
can-
separately right now.
make a motion on just the ambulance.
Okay.
You could, and then you have to consider what the effect is, that you just raised the ambulance rates, now you want to raise that tax, so
Mhm.
you might want to.
Well, there might be something in there that if we pass a referendum, that
Yeah,
that a resident, and just saying if, the big if, that if we were to pass a referendum, the residents of Winfield wouldn't have an ambulance increase.
it'd just be the out of
It'd
district.
just be the out of district.
Yeah, but we could pull it out.
I was just curious as to how,
We could pull it out, and we could pass it.
I make the motion, we increase the ambulance rate, we need money.
Mhm.
It doesn't, no matter
We
what.
can always go back.
Do a referendum, we can always go back and abate it, but we need money.
the reality is also,
We're not charging.
yeah, we can't cover our costs. And that's the whole purpose of the GEMT and all that is being able to cover your costs, and we're not covering our costs.
Well, if you look at anything in life right now, what are you hearing with anything? We just talked about it with the fire truck.
Yep.
The cost of
Yep.
everything in the supply chain is going
And
up.
the opportunity to get it's taking longer.
So
Yeah.
a couple of things I would add, just to the discussion. There's a few things. So our equalized assessed valuation, our EAV, the amount of money, taxable property within this district that gets taxed at our rate of 35 cents. There are a few things to keep in mind. So essentially every 1 cent of increase, because our EAV is at 741 million and change. Every 1 cent of increase translates into about $74,000 in revenue. Going back to how much an employee costs and all that other stuff is all the stuff that gets cooked into how we arrive at what we need financially. Number one. So, and then the ambulance fee structure, the offset and all the other stuff, that's all stuff. We're not looking to charge anyone. We're not a for-profit entity. We're not, and another item that was used, we're not Amazon is looking for a tax write-off. So we lease our vehicles. It doesn't work that way. The same reason the Army doesn't rent tanks, same reason the Air Force doesn't rent airplanes, same reason the Navy doesn't rent ships. So, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So all of these things have implications on other elements of it. Every 1 cent of increase, the projected increase in ambulance fees, all that stuff, to arrive at whatever ultimately is the apparatus we want to have. If it's an engine, an ambulance, which we have now, an ambulance in another ambulance company. If it's an engine, an ambulance in a jump company, where are we going to put them? How many facilities? Because just having a facility has, so all of these things are interrelated, and it is a process to arrive at a strategic model to do this. And so there's the point of this was there's some extremely big decisions, because what's the Forever Fire Department gonna be?
Yep. I'd like to make the motion to approve the ambulance cost increase or the ambulance billing rate increase to the 2275 that was recommended in the document for us.
For seconded,
I know, that's okay.
do not scribble.
Do you already need the move?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I missed it. I forgot, my bad.
President Callis,
Yes.
Well, I better say
Secretary
yes.
Sal.
Yes.
Treasurer Hammond.
Yes.
Trustee Sal.
Yes.
Trustee
It's all
Sessions.
look on our face.
Dang it.
Can I also make the suggestion that the information that is public knowledge and can be out there gets put up on the website
Mhm,
ASAP, so that
Yep.
when we're doing this survey,
mhm.
there is,
Reference
links,
documents to go
links
to.
that can go back to
Yeah,
documents that
absolutely.
explain and so that the information is out there.
Mhm.
So that's not provided by someone else who might misinterpret it.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea, John. I really do.
And then we just table the rest of this recommendation until next meeting.
All right.
I'd be fine with that.
I need a motion to pay the bill. Probably still can't.
But before we pay the bills, or were we doing that after?
No, we're doing that.
Okay, cool, then,
I have a written record.
good.
Bill, did you make that motion? I did.
I'll second. Oh, Chief has his finger up.
No.
Oh, okay.
All in
Ready
favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Any remarks from the floor or the computer world? You two are done.
We got fingers up in the room, so.
You can say something.
One person had something and they said they would contact chief because they needed to go.
Okay,
So
sorry.
we'll get an email at some point. Luke Allen, you've all been, most of you have been trustees for a long time. And you've been through referendums many times. I don't think kicking the can down the road, I think you know everything that you need to know that you are, and I don't think you're gonna learn anything new in a survey of the residents. You've been in driveway events, you've talked to neighbors, you've known these communities. I would encourage you not to wait past December to make a decision, because if you're gonna ask us to help you get a referendum ramped up, it's gonna take time and precious time. Like, we've got to get ramped up again. Get through the holiday season so that we can hit strong when January 1st starts, and not wait till January to try to ramp up. Because I can't even begin to communicate about it until a plan is put into place. So, and it's gonna take all hands on deck, and it's gonna take a whole lot more lifting by every single person you know. You have to have every neighbor helping. This thing is not gonna pass itself. And a plastic yard sign that someone sees while they drive by does not make them vote. It may get them talking about it, but it doesn't make a vote. So I think you already know the answers to a lot. You've talked to, I think, about a lot of the issues that why people have voted no. And they may have philosophical disagreements with just taxes in general. There's really nothing you can do about that. But I think you know why people are gonna vote no. And I think there needs to be consequence. I think that you need to make decisions so that the people who work here can move forward with implementing whatever this next decade or a couple decades is gonna be. So I would encourage you just not to kick the can any further than December. Because there's too much work to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I think, you obviously know because you're sitting here, but like you guys just said, you got that information from the county yesterday, which we haven't seen yet, that about what the succeeding parts of the district are off. So to, make a decision tonight without that in front of us, we can't decide on that.
Well, we're not gonna make a decision on ceding property tonight on this referendum. That's something that is, if you read it again, it would be upon completion of.
But it still goes into the factor of what number you're asking for. When you look at if we,
The
these
long-term
numbers,
sustainability
from
of the district.
just your reaction to when you said it, like it's a substantial number potentially, like, so then, yeah, that has to go into what number we're asking for.
But also remember, ceding property in our situation is not a punishment or retribution for voting no. It's honestly our effort to make sure that you get better fire service and quicker fire service, because we're not able to make it. And the concern of this house and all the people that live here and work here is to save your life as quick as they can. And getting there in 10 minutes, not gonna get the job done. So
Chief-
when we say that, when we say ceding property, we're not, you sons of sons, we're not gonna do this because you didn't go for it. We're saying it because, we're at a point where we can't get there in time. And you're best served by another community and by paying taxes in that community. Because that's the right thing to do, because they're the ones saving your lives. But that's really, we're not mad at anyone. We're just trying to run a business. Trying to run the fire district business and make sure that all our customers are as happy as possible and are all alive.
I think before we get to that meeting in December, Chief, you put together a lot of great information here. If I just ask for a little more of that great information, that is, we've talked about, what's that middle ground? What's the get? What does that ask look like? I think to have, to be able to have a decision be made, we know the two extremes. Show us what that, somewhere in the middle gets us and what,
Well,
what that number looks like.
One of this document was precisely that. This is what we need tomorrow.
Yep.
Right.
And it's not a long-term solution. I've gone out, I've talked to the public, and what would be the proper structural fix was what it was.
Exactly.
And this is like, look, this is what we need tomorrow, folks.
Yep.
This is,
Just keep going.
So, yeah, if you could
and
get
that
us,
was the design of it.
yeah, if you could get us something that shows that middle, and then we've got for going the old sales terms, the good, better, best, right? Show us what those options are. We know what it's not even good, and then we know what the best is. So let's see what that middle looks like. That would be very beneficial, I think, for the conversation. Because you have so much time to write more reports.
If you do decide to ask for questions, please know that the school district and maybe perhaps the village or other entities will be willing to distribute whatever your survey is to get information. We always think it's good to help our partners. And certainly if there are informational opportunities where we can ask questions, we would want to distribute those things.
I appreciate that.
Is that something you're gonna do between now and then? Y'all are
Yeah.
gonna just
We're-
do it?
We're gonna get that thing done here pretty quick. Yeah.
I will gladly
Yeah.
help spread that as well.
Thanks, Emily.
Ready, do you have a executive session, Dee?
No.
Oh, we have a quick executive session, Dee.
No.
No?
Other business.
Okay, well then, do we want to discuss it? I guess I'm fine with that. Okay.
Other business.
Other business.
There it
Right here
is.
after remarks from the floor.
Secondary
Other
remarks.
business, yeah.
We received this today afternoon. We received this today. It is.
Wow.
President of the Board of Fire Commissioners, Chris Van, submitted his resignation. He's been a tremendous asset to the board. I can't even speak to what a tremendous influence he's had for our organization, serving on the Board of Fire Commissioners. Submitted his resignation. So I would be the first to say a sincere and heartfelt thank you for him and his service. However, this will obviously create a vacancy on the Board of Fire Commissioners, which obviously couldn't be on the agenda because it was submitted today. So I just wanted to inform the board at this meeting that it was submitted.
Well, this is a huge loss.
Yeah, it really is. Chris has done a great job. Been a good leader, very level-headed, and what I consider a friend. It's
Very valuable to this community.
Mhm.
I wish him the very best in his new home and wherever he's going. If you're out there listening, Chris, goodbye, good luck.
And thank you, because dear God, I served on that board under him for 12 years, and he is very good.
So, we'll have to, I've got someone that hopefully would be willing to fill his spot. I want you guys to think of some other names too and bring them up, and we can talk about that at the next meeting when it's on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Go home.